We continue now at the top of Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph in Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 12a. The Gemara continues a brisa from the Tosefta. We do not declare a leap year b'shnei ra'avon. We do not declare a leap year in a time of famine. And Rashi explains b'shnei ra'avon lefi shekola hatvua. The reason is because at that point in time there's very little grain. Utzrichen lechol min hachodesh, and people need to eat from the new grain. And if you're going to declare it a leap year, that's going to be an extra month. People have to wait in order to be able to get that new grain from the halachas of chodesh, and so therefore we do not declare a leap year in a situation of a famine. And the Gemara continues along the same lines. Tanya, we learned in a brisa. Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says in the Mesorah Hashas, some have the Girsa Hoyer, Rebbe Meir Omer, that Rebbe Meir would say. In either case, Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says, V'ish bami bal shalisha vayove liishu elokim lechem bikurim esrim lechem saorim. This is by Elisha in Sefer Malachim. It says the person came from Baal Shalisha and he brought to the man of God lechem bikurim, those first fruits, and it was 20 lechem saorim of barley. And the Brisa says, Ve'ein loch kala b'chol Eretz Yisrael avashel peiroseh yosr mi Baal Shalisha. First of all, there is no area in Eretz Yisrael where the fruits ripen faster than this area of Baal Shalisha, and this person was coming mi Baal Shalisha, from Baal Shalisha. V'afal pichein, and nevertheless, lo bikra la min echad, it was only one species that had ripened at this point in time. And Shema Tomar chitim, and maybe you'll say that the species that ripened was chitim, it was wheat. That's already the time that it's supposed to ripen, is Shavuos time, but that's not true. Talmud lomar so'orim. The pasuk over there says that it wasn't wheat. We were talking about barley, which generally ripens earlier. And Shema Tomer Lefnei Omer. Now maybe you'll say that this incident took place before the Omer. Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, Tein lo'ama vayochelu achar ha'omer hay. It says, give to the people and they'll be able to eat. And that shows that this actually took place after the Omer already. Emor mayata. So therefore we can conclude from this, Ru'uya haisa osa shana shetesaber, that really that year was a year that should have been a leap year. Umivnei malo ivra Elisha. And why didn't Elisha declare that it was a leap year? Sheshnas betzoras haisa, because it was a year of famine. V'hayu akol rotzin lebeis hagranos, and everyone was running to the granaries for the new crop, and so therefore that's why they did not declare a leap year that year. And Rashi explains lechem bikurim lechem aviv. Again, it means the bread that was ripening. Mashma she'achshav hay mevaker. It sounds like right now it just ripened. V'shem tomer chitin hayu. Now maybe you'll say that we're talking about wheat over here. Sheina felos, in general they ripen later. Lekach nesachru levashal adachar Pesach, and that's why it took so long to ripen until after Pesach. Talmud lomar lechem sorim, but the pasuk says no, we're talking about barley. V'shem tomer lefnei homer hay, and maybe you'll say this all took place before the Omer of Zman Bikar, and it was really in the proper time that it ripened. Talmud lomar tein lam v'yochelu, but the pasuk says give to the people that they can eat. Melamid shekara v'omer v'hutar hachodesh. That shows we're talking about a time where the Omer was already brought and chodesh was now mutter. So emor meyata. So therefore you can say from now, you can conclude from here, Ru'uya haisa osa shana lesaber, that this year was actually fit to be a leap year. Al ha'aviv kasheyigia Nisan adayin lohaya rov aviv, meaning to say when Nisan arrived, still the spring, that season of ripening, hadn't really arrived. To halachar shisha asar b'Nisan lo bikru elasorim, because we see that in this year, even after the 16th of Nisan, the only thing that had ripened was the barley. V'lo karina be chodesh ha'aviv, and it wouldn't be referred to as chodesh ha'aviv, but nevertheless they did not declare it a leap year again, so that chodesh would be permitted earlier. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein ma'avernes Hashana lifnei Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to declare a leap year before Rosh Hashanah, meaning before Rosh Hashanah you can't say that the coming year will be a leap year. V'imivru, and if they do that, if they declared a leap year for the coming year, Eina me'uberes, that will not be an effective declaration, it will not be considered to be a leap year. Avol mibnei hadachak, but if it's a situation which is a pressing situation, ma'avren osa achar Rosh Hashanah miyad, you are allowed to declare it a leap year immediately after Rosh Hashanah. V'afal bichein, and nevertheless, ein ma'avren ela adar, the only thing you're allowed, the only month you're allowed to add is to the month of Adar, you add a second Adar. And Rashi explains, Ein ma'avrin ein yoshvin bezdin kodem Rosh Hashanah. Bezdin cannot sit before Rosh Hashanah, la'ayin v'lomar tesaber shanazu, to look into the matter and to say that this coming year should be an Ibor Shana, should have an extra month. B'shnei Adarim, it should have 2 Adars. Mimnei sheyesh shicha b'davar kodem sheyagia u'mizalzli b'chametz. Because what's going to happen is people will forget about this before it arrives, and then they'll end up being mizalzel when it comes to the halachas of chametz. They're not going to realize that it's really a second Adar, and it's not actually Nisan, it's going to cause problems with keeping Pesach. Avol memnei hadachak, but if it's a pressing situation, Shema lo yehei sham bezin mufla samach la'adar, we're afraid maybe bezin can't convene, such an expert bezin cannot convene near Adar, or Shema yavu hamelech edomi, or maybe the Roman king is going to come via Akev al Yadin, maybe he'll stop them. Then ma'avern oso modian legola achar Rosh Hashanah miyad shivarnua. So then immediately after Rosh Hashanah, you can declare it a leap year, and you can let everyone know that it is a leap year. And nevertheless, when we declare a leap year, you can't choose any other months. The only thing you can do is when Adar comes, you make 2 Adars. But the Gemara continues, Ini, is this really the case that we're not allowed to declare a leap year before Rosh Hashanah? But they sent to Rava, Zug ba merekes. Rashi here explains the Zug means Shnei Talmidei Chachamim. 2 Talmidei Chachamim, ba merekes, they came from Rekes, which is Tiveria, that's the area where the Sanhedrin was. V'tavsu Nesher, and Rashi explains, V'tavsu Nesher Chel Parsiim, there was a group of soldiers, Persian soldiers, who grabbed them. Uviyadam dvorim hanasa beluz, and in their hands, in their possession, they had things that were made in luz. Umayni, when the Gemara interrupts and says, what are those things made in luz? Techeles, that's a reference to Techeles. And Rashi says, dvorim hanasim beluz, Techeles beluz osin osa. They would make the Techeles in luz, kedamin and besota, that's what we say in sota. He luz shetsoven, but Techeles, that refers to luz, where they would dye the Techeles. And the Gemara continues, B'zuchus harachamim u'v'schusam, in the merit of mercy and in their merit, Yatsu b'shalom, they were able to emerge from all of this in peace. V'amuse yireichei nachshon, and Rashi explains, Amuse yireichei nachshon means Nasi sheba Eretz Yisrael. That's a reference to the Nasi in Eretz Yisrael, the descendants of Nachshon. Shumi zera Nachshon, because the Nasi comes from the children, from the descendants of Nachshon, ben Aminadav, Rishon l'Nesiim. They're from the descendants of Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was the first of the Nesiim. And so basically the Gemara is saying that the Nasi, who was in Eretz Yisrael, Bikshu l'kvoa netziv echad, they wanted to establish one pillar. And Rashi explains, Bikshu l'kvoa netziv echad, Bikshu lahosif chodesh echad. What it means to say is they wanted to add a month. Al Hashana, on the year la'avar, they wanted to make it a leap year. V'lo hinichon Edomi halaz, but this Edomi did not allow them to do that. And Rashi explains, V'lo hinichon Edomi halaz, meaning Malchus Harisha, meaning the evil government, Gazra Gezeira Alein, declared a Gezeira against them, didn't allow them to do that. Avol bali asufos nesfu, but those who gather, they gathered together. V'kavulo netziv echad, and they did establish this pillar. B'yerach shemeisbo Aaron HaKohen, and they did this in the month in which Aaron died. And Rashi explains, B'yarach shemeisbo Aaron ba'av, meaning the month that Aaron died was the month of Av. Alma, in any case, from this entire story we see, Mimnei hadachak, that if you're in a pressing situation, Ma'ainin bi'ibor shana lifnei Rosh Hashanah, apparently they were able to look into declaring a leap year before Rosh Hashanah, because Av, of course, is before Rosh Hashanah, and they were declaring the following year, they were declaring that to be a leap year. And the Gemara continues, Chashuve mechashvi, that we are allowed to consider the matter, or we're allowed to deliberate whether or not to make a leap year even before Rosh Hashanah, but Geluye lo miglu, but you're not allowed to reveal that. And Rashi says, Geluye lo miglu ad la'achar Rosh Hashanah, you can't reveal it until after Rosh Hashanah, Shelo yishkachu b'nei hagola, that way the people who are in the exile, in the faraway places, they shouldn't forget, so we don't want to announce it too early. And the Gemara continues, My mashma d'hai netziv, lishna d'yarchu. How do you know that this word netziv over here that we translated as pillar, but we said it's a reference to that extra month, how do we know that it is a language that's referencing that extra month? T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, there's a pasuk in Sefer Malachim, v'lishlomo, shneim osor netzivim, al kol Yisrael, it says that to Shlomo HaMelech, there were 12 netzivim throughout all of Eretz Yisrael, they were appointed throughout Klal Yisrael, v'chilkalu es HaMelech, Yes, Beiso Chodesh Bashana, and they supported the king and his household. Each one took 1 month of the year. Vaksiv, but isn't it written in Netziv Echad Asher Ba'aretz that there was one Netziv? And the Gemara says, Rav Yehuda Rav Nachman, that's a machlokas Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman, how to answer that contradiction. Chad Omar Echad Mamuna Al Kulam, one says there was one Netziv that was appointed over all of these 12 Netzivim. V'chad Omar Keneged Chodesh Ivor. The other one says the reason why there was a Netziv Echad, there was one extra Netziv because there would be maybe a leap year, and therefore there'd be an extra month. And the point over here is that these 12 Netzivim, each one was assigned to support the household of the king for 1 month. That's how you see that Netziv is a language that's a reference to a month. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein ma'avrenes hashana lo mishana lechaverta. We can't declare a leap year from one year to the next year. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Velo shalosh shanim zu achar zu. You also can't declare 3 years of leap years one after the other. Rabbi Shimon says, Ma'aseh Rabbi Akiva, there was an incident with Rabbi Akiva, shayu chavush beveiso asrum, that he was imprisoned, v'iber shalosh shanim zu achar zu, and he actually did declare leap years 3 years one after the other. Amrulo, they said to him, Misham Rai, you bring a proof from over there. It's not a good proof because Bezdin Yoshvu v'kavu achas bismana, but because actually the Bezdin actually did sit and they convened, they established each one at its proper time. And Rashi explains, first it said again, Mishana lechaverta, you can't be ma'aver the shana from one year to the next. Rashi says that means imshana haba tzricha la'aber, meaning if the coming year needs to be a leap year, ein ma'avrin shana zu mimnei tzorche shana haba. You can't say that this year is a leap year because of the need that's really a need for next year. Ela hatzricha tesaver, rather the year that needs to be the leap year, that's the one that should be declared the leap year. And then it said velo shalosh shanim zu achar zu. Rashi's going to have two interpretations of what this means. So Rashi's first interpretation is 3 years in a row. Shemkein mishtanos hashanim mitikunim. If you're going to have 3 leap years in a row, then all the years are going to be messed up. Uvalo Nisan Hashlishi, B'emsa HaKayetz, it's going to turn out that third Nisan is going to end up in the middle of the summer. It's going to be pushed way too late if you have 3 leap years in a row. And they brought a proof from Rabbi Akiva that he did do, according to this understanding of Rashi, he did do 3 leap years in a row, and they said that's not a proof, because Bezdin Yoshvu v'kavu kol achas v'achas bizmana, Bezdin sat and established each one in its proper time, and the way Rashi understands it, according to this interpretation, v'lo ivru gimel shanim ritzufos, it wasn't that they did 3 in a row, v'lo zu achar zuhay, it wasn't one right after the other, elimination Rabbi Akiva chacham gadol haya, what actually happened was as follows, Rabbi Akiva was very wise, ubaki bibur hashana, he was an expert when it came to leap years. V'omed lehareg, and he was about to be killed. So bo bezin v'yashvu imo, he was in prison, he was going to be killed. So the court came and they sat with him. Va'ainu be'ibor gimel shanim v'lo ritzufos, and they looked into the next 3 leap years. Not that there were 3 leap years in a row. They just looked ahead to see what the next 3 leap years would be. El kol achas, each one bismana was in its right time. Like we said above, if it's a pressing situation, you can make the calculations. You just don't publicize it. And then Rashi has a second explanation, Lishna Achrin, another understanding of what it means 3 years, one after the other. V'lo gimel shanim zu achar zu, Tanakama nami b'haka asar. When it says 3 years, one after the other, you can't do. The Tanakama also says that this is what we're talking about. Shelo ya'ainu be'ibor shalosh shanim zu achar zu b'yeshiva achas. It really means not talking about actually having 3 leap years in a row. You're not even allowed to look into the future of 3 leap years. Va'afilu lavrin bismanan. Even if you're going to do them each in their proper time, it's not going to be 3 in a row, but you can't look that far ahead into the future. And then they asked from Rabbi Akiva, because that's exactly what happened with Rabbi Akiva, and the Gemara responded, Misham Rai, you can't bring a proof from there, because Bezdin Yoshvu Acharechein B'chol Shnas Ibor V'Ibor V'Kavua. Bezdin reconvened at each time, each one of those years, and they established it as a leap year. V'lo Samchu Al Oso Minyan, they didn't rely on the fact that they had sat with Rabbi Akiva. El Lefisha Rabbi Akiva Chacham Gadol Ainu B'Shloshtam B'Yamav. But since Rabbi Akiva was such an expert in this matter, they wanted to look into all 3 of them while he was still alive, but they reconvened, and that's why it was not a problem. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein ma'avrenes hashana lo b'shvius, v'lo b'motzoi shvius. We do not declare a leap year, not during the Shemitah year, because that prolongs the Shemitah year when they're not working the land, and also not in motzoi shvius, not in the year following the Shemitah year, because there also the people need to get produce. They didn't work the land the entire previous year, so we don't declare either of those years as leap years. Amosai regilan la'avrin, when was it the normal time to declare a leap year? What's a good year to declare a leap year? Erev Shvius, the year before the Shemitah year, that's a good year to declare a leap year. Shal Beis Rabbi Gamliel hayu ma'avrin b'motzoi Shvius, but in the house of Rabbi Gamliel, they actually would declare leap years even in the year following a Shemitah year. And the Gemara explains, Uvepluksa dahani tanoi, this machlokis of whether we declare a leap year b'motzoi Shvius is the same as the following machlokis tanoim. Tanya, because we learned in a braysa, ein mevi'in yerek mechutz la'aretz. According to the Tanakama, you're not allowed to bring vegetables from Chutz La'aretz, and therefore you can't import vegetables. Therefore, you shouldn't be declaring leap years b'motzoi shvius and making that year longer. V'Rabboseinu hitiru, but the Rabboseinu, our rabbis hitiru, they say it's permitted. You are allowed to import yerek from Chutz La'aretz, from outside of Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, since you can import the vegetables, there really is no problem. And the Gemara says, "My beinayu," what exactly is the dispute between them? Why does one not allow it and the other does allow the importing of vegetables? Amar Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Choshin legoshein ika benayu. The question is whether we're concerned for clods of earth that are coming into Eretz Yisrael. The earth from outside Eretz Yisrael is considered to be tamei. So are we concerned that when you bring in these vegetables, you're going to bring in earth as well from Chutz La'aretz? That's the machlokes between the Tanakam of the Brisa and the opinion of the Rabboseinu. And Rashi explains, Lo b'shvius, we don't declare a leap year in the Shemitah year, Lefisha ma'arichan alein isra avodas karka. If that year is longer, that's just a longer period of time that they're not allowed to work the land. V'lo b'motzoi shvius, and also we don't declare a leap year the year following Shemitah year, meaning b'shminis in the 8th year, Lefisha kol hayashim, because all of the old grain, it's all going to be finished. U'ma'arichan alein isra hachadash, if you're going to make the year longer, it's going to take longer to permit the chadash, and therefore we don't want to delay that. And Rashi continues, what is a good year to declare a leap year? Be'erev shvius, the year before the Shemitah year, Lahosef Lem Chodesh, La'avodas Karka, that gives them an extra month to work the land. And Rashi continues, Shal Beis Rabban Gamliel, Ma'avrin M'motzoi Shvius, in the house of Rabban Gamliel, they declared leap years even in the 8th year. Vein Choshen and Kila Hayash, and they weren't concerned that the old grain would finish, because they held we're allowed to import the vegetables and the grain from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, from that which was plowed and planted in the 7th year, V'itiram Omer Shal Shvius, and was already permitted with the Omer of the 7th year. And the Gemara explained, "My beinayu b'may pligi." What is the machlokas exactly in terms of importing the yerek? And the machlokas is choshen legushayu. Are we concerned about the clods of earth? Shemayavi ima migush eretz ha'amim, because maybe he'll bring together with the yerek, he'll bring clods of earth from outside of Eretz Yisrael. Shemetame ba'oel, and those clods of earth are metame ba'oel. They create tumah. Let's say they're underneath an oel, underneath a tent. V'yitma taharo shel Eretz Yisrael, and then the food that they're trying to keep pure in Eretz Yisrael is going to become tameh. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Ein ma'avernes hashanim imnei hatumah. You're not allowed to declare a leap year because of tumah, meaning let's say most of Klal Yisrael, for example, is tameh, and they want to delay Pesach in order that people should be able to bring the carbon Pesach and not be tameh. That is not a reason to declare a leap year. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ma'avern, Rabbi Yehuda says that's a fine reason, and you can declare a leap year because of tumah. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Ma'isa b'Chizkiya melech Yehuda. There was an incident with Chizkiya, the king of Yehuda, she'iber es hashanim imnei hatumah, that he did add a month to the year because of tumah. But then he asked for mercy on himself, that he had sinned by doing so he asked for forgiveness. T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, Ki mar b'sa'am rabas me'Ephraim u'Menashe Yisachar Zevulun lo hitaharu. Many from Ephraim, Menashe, Yisachar, and Zevulun, they had not become purified. And Rashi explains, B'mnei hatumah kagon shaya nasi chola. Let's say you have, for example, the nasi, let's say he's ill, v'yamdu lomos erev HaPesach, and they've estimated that he might die right before Pesach, u'shnei yamim kodem, 1 or 2 days before Pesach, v'yu tameim, and then everyone's going to be tamei, o shaya ruban tameim, or let's say most people just happen to be tamei, b'sof Adar, at the end of Adar, v'chol sefer ha'parah, they don't have the ashes from a parah aduma, v'ein yachol limtzo achsha parah aduma, they can't find a parah aduma now, ein ma'avrin b'kach, you're not allowed to declare a leap year for that reason, eliyasu b'tumah, rather they have to take care of the needs of Pesach while they are tamei, she'iber es hashanim imnei hatumah, but then the Brisa said, Rabbi Yehuda said, that there was an incident with Chizkiyo where he actually did declare a leap year because of tumah. Shenitmu b'mei achaz aviv me'avodah zara shlochashu l'Torah v'ya Chizkiyo machzir lamuta, because they had become tamei during the reign of Achaz, who was his father, because at that time they were not keeping the Torah. So Chizkiyo, he brought them back to keeping the Torah. V'yadash lo yaspiku kulan lavo v'litar, and he knew that they would not have enough time all to purify themselves at Pesach, before Pesach, v'iber hashon, and so therefore he declared that it was a leap year. Uvikesh rachem imalatzmo, and then he davened for mercy for himself, sheyimcho lo avon, that this sin of his should be forgiven. And Rashi notes, Ulakaman Parach, the Gemara later will ask, Hoel v'yamar Rabbi Yehuda ma'avrin, since Rabbi Yehuda just said that it's perfectly fine to declare a leap year because of tumah, so lama bikesh rachem imalatzmo, why was he davening for mercy for himself? He really didn't do anything wrong, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis.